I guess, yeah, just feel like they can go there a little bit more. We've definitely found there's a lot of issues with patients not being prepared for surgery, not knowing what to expect. So that's kind of one of the things that we are trying to solve. And I guess, yeah, we just kind of, I mean, we know
What
what
made you?
360
Yeah. So
is.
what? Yeah. What drew you to 360? I'm curious.
So we wanted something that was going to be more of an immersive experience for the patient, and we
Sure.
wanted something that was different than the current discharge education, which for the majority of patients is pretty much just consisting of large amounts of paper that you're just being handed. So we kind
Are
of
there videos? Do straight ahead videos exist already?
There are some straight ahead videos. Yeah, it's definitely not super strongly implemented into education, but there are some. I know, even like I work at Ohio State and we have a patient education portal and there's some videos, but they're not super like well
Yeah.
utilized, and they're not super surgery specific most of the
Sure.
time.
Sure. Have you experimented with shooting straight video for the thing you're trying to describe? Just
N-
curious about that.
No, no, we have
Okay.
not.
Yeah, because so like the one caveat I would give you for 360 videos, it's um I think it's a reasonable thing to explore. You should be aware of the fact that it is like the use cases for 360 video tend to be a lot more limited or specific, I think, than gets discussed around the hype around the technology. Um,
Okay.
and so there's a couple of killer use cases I can think of for 360. Um, One is on an elephant. Right? If you go on YouTube, I don't know if have you gone and looked at like the YouTube 360 videos and seen what's kind of out there, right? There's like
Yeah.
the real famous one that tends to come up is like the elephant uh, preservation thing. You're like on a little boat and there's elephants and there's a guy rowing the boat, and that really works if you think about it, because that's what you do in a boat anyway, right? Is you sit there
Hmm.
and look around. So like mounting a camera to the front of a boat fits with how the actual experience is, and the guy rowing would be sitting right there and he's kind of dismissively not really making eye contact, he's kind of just doing his job and rowing, and so it feels an awful lot like what that experience would actually feel like, right? And the camera doesn't move because you don't move when you sit in a boat. You don't move around. You just sit there.
Hmm.
Um, the other kind of big use case I tend to point at is if you're trying to do a dynamic situation, like I've seen some 360 videos of live events. Like one of them was at Mardi Gras, that kind of thing. And typically in those situations, they put a 360 camera on the end of a stick, and somebody walks around with the stick, and the camera's kind of right above their head, because it sees in every direction, right? So you can't hold it because then you see yourself. So um, the whole point is to create like a first person perspective, and you can do 180. You can just do the front if you do want to walk around with it like this. Um, but you have to consider the fact that it sees everything, and that's one of its weaknesses actually. Like for me, as somebody who shoots a lot of video, one of the great things about video is you can't see anything that's outside of the frame of the video. Whatever you point the camera at is what you see, and everything else you can just forget about. And it has some implications in terms of kind of staging, right? Like how you stage something that you want to shoot, whether it's lit in a way that looks good. Sometimes you go to shoot something in video and you discover that it looks really dingy. Like it looks okay to your eyes, but our eyes have an enormous dynamic range of brightness, right? And so then you shoot
Okay.
video and you realize that you haven't lit it properly, and it kind of looks like a dungeon. And so that's one of those things where, for me, straight ahead video can be a little bit more um, manageable because it gives me less variables to think about. I've only shot a little bit of 360, but it mostly kind of has been in like a more experimental space because the applications of it actually seem more limited, and certainly people aren't really used to viewing those kinds of things. So I just would introduce all of those. It adds a level of complexity, is what I might say. So like um, I guess my initial recommendation would be that for you to at least try to shoot some kind of prototype of the thing you imagine, um, because of what the things I'm talking about. That after you do that, you may discover things about the shoot that you're trying to commit to. And then when you go to the 360 mode, again, it requires some kind of special planning. If a person's going to be walking through a space, again, you have to have some kind of rig so it's not a big deal, like a stick or something. But it tends to be then taller than a person, and so it's a little awkward or weird looking. So that, again, you could commit to 180, maybe just like a front field view if you want to be able to walk around with it and make it first person. Typically, what makes 360 videos powerful is somebody views it in a VR headset. So that'd be I guess my other question is, in terms of deployment, are people going to be watching this video once they're in your charge so that you can like put a headset on them? Or are you distributing this with a link? Like, how are you thinking of deploying this thing?
We're
So
looking.
I think I have a question.
Yeah, yeah.
Like what we want to do is from patient perspective, right? So I'm the patient in the OR, I'm late or in the stretcher, and I'm
Mhm.
looking around the room and I want to be able to see everything that's there. So I feel like 180 would be better
Might be
versus
fine. Right.
360, right?
Right. Well, especially if you're gonna like, if the assumption is right. So this is the where you do actually want to, I think the thing about 180 or 360 is because it's immersive, you have to take a slightly different perspective than you do maybe with like video, because you are the head of the viewer, right? So then you have to like kind of chat it out like this. So like if the assumption is I'm laying in a bed, which means I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
up, then right, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
probably want 180 because 360 is the pillow. If the person's
Mm-hmm.
sitting up
Mm-hmm.
in some kind of situation, 360 might be okay, especially if they're in bed, because then you could just put the camera there. But right, you have to have a reason for using it all. And since it makes your life more complicated, then yeah, 180 is kind of easier because then you could just lay the camera on a pillow and have it
Mm-hmm.
facing up and it would
And
capture.
we're not seeing 360. We can't spin our head around. So,
Right,
right.
right.
Okay. All
And that's
right.
the thing about
This
Mardi Gras,
helps.
right? So like the big sell for the technology kind of is, oh, it's going to be the future because, and the first kind of creative team that tried that there was a movie made in Hollywood and I can't even remember the name of it because it didn't, I don't think it did very well. But I remember the shots they were showing. Mostly I was reading it because it was coming up in tech magazines, and the shots they were showing were in the Los Angeles Wash, where a lot of movies have taken place, those big concrete rivers. And the scene they were showing was like it looked like Fast and the Furious. Like it wasn't that, but it was like, a hot car and a young guy and a young girl, and they're like having an argument, and there's somebody over there. And so I think the sell from the directors was, you're watching this dramatic scene and the guy and the girl are fighting, but over here there's another thing going on. And so then you got to like rewatch the movie. And as I'm hearing him describe it, I'm just kind of thinking like, yeah, this sounds like it's not going to work because like one of the things that makes movies work is that the director tells you what to look at. And the director has this vision and they're showing you their point of view. So if now you just have to film everything, it feels like live theater or something, but then you can't pay attention to everything because it's like so that kind of narrows the use cases for me, right? So if I'm watching a Mardi Gras video, that I might rewatch because the one time I'm watching, I'm like, what is that? And then I rewatch the video and I look over there and there's another crazy paper mache dragon. So I might watch it 3 times and see new things each time. But right, you want to like think about all those implications, I think. And for you guys, it sounds like there is some reason to use something like 180 because the person might need to rewatch it because over here there's something is happening. Excuse me, sir, can you please? And then over here there's a beeping, and so maybe they want to watch it multiple times and look around. Um, yeah, so like I think you kind of get the shtick about how to think about the weaknesses and the strengths of those things. I have to look about the location of the 360 camera because Stephanie just is borrowing it to go. I can't remember where she's going now. She's traveling um, somewhere for Buckeye Serve, I think, or something. And anyway, she's got the camera currently, so let me figure out how to look up where it is so I can uh, get it ready for you guys for borrowing, essentially. Uh, so let me email her when we get off of here, and I'll let you know what the status of that is. Um, and then right, the deployment part. I just encourage you to like, think about because you probably have to document how people are going to watch these things because they're not normal for people. YouTube does let you publish 360/180 video, and I think the player does it with your phone, with the gyroscope. I think once you hit play, then it's like locked, and if you turn your phone, then you're looking around the photosphere. So I think most people could do that without like a headset. Um, but you might need to really clearly document that because I don't think it's not something most people are going to be used to. So just think about that part of it. Um, do you have concerns or questions that fall outside what we're talking about so far?
So with the actual like operation of the camera, like is that something that you do, or is that something like you just give us the camera and like we do it? How
Oh
does that
yeah.
work?
No, it's the simplest thing ever. I wish I had the thing to display to you how big it is. It's I mean it's almost like this size,
Okay.
kind of. It's got a big, it actually kind of looks like so my razor blade slash 360 camera. Right around here there's a fisheye lens and there's another one on the back. And so you've got some amount of material to hang on to here. It's got kind of a body and it's got, lithium batteries inside, so you charge it. And it's got kind of like a couple of fat buttons. I think one is record. It doesn't have a screen on it or anything. So you just hit record and it does its thing. And then when you want to view the videos, you plug it in. I can't remember if I think it's USB. Yeah, because I think you just like hook it to your computer and transfer the videos over. It was very straightforward when I did it. It's kind of a very basic device. Yeah, it's not like a camera. It's just a little puck.
Okay.
It does have those big lenses, so right, like treat it like a camera, like clean the lenses so you don't get like uh right. The Vaseline lens effect, right, because it's like there's an awful lot to touch there. But and then it's got a screw on the bottom for the standard camera tripod mount, that big kind of coarse brass screw or whatever that has that in the bottom. So you just need a camera tripod essentially, or anything with that screw mount on it. You might want to shop on Amazon um, for something that's, you might just lay it on the pillow and be fine. But if you end up needing to do something based on what you're explaining, they sell several kind of weird small clamps, the kinds of clamps that would be used for like a cell phone, because it doesn't weigh very much. So you don't even really need proper photo equipment. Any of those kind of weird clamps that they sell online for, $15 or something, right? That, just clamp onto things. Any of those would be usable and would let you kind of hack to get the camera just where you need it. Even if you just kind of clamp it to something that, instead of, if just laying it on the pillow is dumb because you can see the pillow or because it shifts around or something, you may have to just kind of invent some kind of little stationary thing for yourself. But as long as it has that thread on there, then you can just whatever, right? You can put it on anything.
Okay. So then how does audio work with that? Like does it pretty good about picking up as people are talking, or like what is that like?
I haven't done enough tests with it to tell you for sure. You know, my generic advice, if I'm thinking about video, is that the audio is actually strangely kind of the one part that's super hard typically, but depending on how good you need the fidelity to be and how live you want it to sound, the audio on the camera is always worse, right? There's a reason that all the YouTubers and streamers have like separate mics. It's because usually the camera isn't close enough to hear the thing properly. So the caveat though is for you guys, you actually want the experience of what it sounds like from the point of view of the camera. So it might be fine. You do some tests essentially. I would start by like just hooking up the camera, hitting record, walking around the bed, talking at the level you imagine you'll be doing when you play act the thing out, and then watching the video. And if you can't hear stuff, then you'll need to consider setting up an additional microphone. But the big problem, of course, with 360 or 180 is you can't have a microphone because you can't hide anything. This is where so when we were doing I still haven't gotten a chance to do these, but I bought some equipment for shooting head to toe assessment videos. And I did some demos real quick with I don't know if you know Stephanie Justice.
Oh yeah, she was one of our professors earlier on.
Yeah, Stephanie's that's who has the camera, right? Um, so I did some with her, and we ended up setting up over in the exam room over by the TLC there. And it was interesting to watch her reaction to my setup because I don't think about this. I do a lot of stuff here in my art studio, and so I kind of just set up all my gear, and then she came out like, "Whoa, it's a lot of stuff," because there ends up being like a bunch of tripods with like black camera arms to hold the cameras and get them in just the spot to capture all the things, and then also I had a mic on a kind of like on a boom arm, like a little Hollywood production. I can't hide all that stuff, so it makes it kind of unfeasible for me to think about 180 because I like to use the magic of cameras because I can have three cameras next to each other that look like a hot mess, right? Just like a bunch of trash, but none of the cameras can see each other. So when you watch the video, it's just like when you watch a rom-com or something, right? The couple's having like an intimate dinner at a cafe, but like right there is 15 people sitting like this. Right? Holding equipment, moving around. So like the video is kind of partially a magic trick sometimes. You don't have to consider all of this because it does sound like 180 video from the perspective of the bed kind of makes sense for what you guys are doing. I'm just talking out some of the things that I've noticed as I do this stuff. And one of the things about having cameras that where I'm able to hide stuff is I'm also able to have a big ugly mic right here and get it close to the person and capture the audio. So if I was doing a two-person interaction, like a head-to-toe video, I think I want straight ahead video because I need to be able to I need to be able to hear the nurse asking the patient questions and how they respond. And I don't want it to sound echoey like I shot it from the back of the room. I want it to sound like right, and I can't get the camera close enough otherwise, right? Like I want the camera to be far enough away that I can see Stephanie standing there and our volunteer sitting on the bed. And from that distance, the audio is going to sound terrible. So I have to just surrender to the fact that I have to use a separate microphone and camera. It's an option. I can talk to you about how to do it. If you find it makes sense for some scenario you're doing, it's definitely doable. But yeah, you don't need to get involved with that kind of thing unless you have a need for it. And based on what you've explained, I would just start with, yeah, something straightforward, like shooting it from the bed and seeing what you get. You know, like the best thing to do is to shoot something quick, right? Like do it. Don't set up a giant production with multiple people. Like the two of you just go shoot something as easily as you can, as close to what you think you want, and then make yourself watch the video and just be critical enough to correct the things you can. So again, if lighting seems poor, be willing to move the camera or open more drapes or turn on lights or whatever you gotta do. And if the audio seems off, sometimes the room has as much to do with the audio as anything else. So pay attention to that, depending on if you can move locations. But a lot of journalists and podcasters use their closet for recording audio. You put the mic in the clothes, like a bunch of clothes hanging on hangers. You put the mic in there, like kind of nuzzled into the clothing, and you step up into the closet. So you're just talking at the clothes. Sounds really good. Sounds like a studio because it removes all the echo and kind of room noise. So I don't know if that helps, but that's a way I kind of try to think. When I'm thinking about audio, I try to remember that sometimes it's just the space
Yeah.
that's causing problems.
No, that is
So
a good way to think about it.
like after we record, how do we save it for our, like I know, okay.
That's a good question. It's just a video file. It's like when you shoot stuff with your phone. So that's
Okay, cool.
that's why the phone to me is not like a terrible starting point too.
Yeah.
Because like you can like today, even if you just were in the mood, I'm just saying, right? It's easy to kind of like pull out a phone, lay it on a pillow, hit record, and it at least starts to give you a bare minimum sense of like a device of that size with a built-in microphone. They're all kind of equivalent these days, right? All the smartphones have terrific cameras and very decent mics. We've left the archaic era. Pretty much everybody has a little studio in their pocket. And most of the stuff that I end up having to explore or bring to people in these situations is my sensibilities as an artist. Having spent a lot of time hitting record and just trying to capture something with limited means, uh, is what has taught me what works and what doesn't. So if you don't have a lot of shooting experience, one of the best things you can do is to just shoot some stuff and then review it. And you'll hate it at first, and you certainly like go into it knowing that you won't like multiple things. Like you won't like the sound of your voice, and you won't like the way you look on camera. Like go into it acknowledging that those are everybody's concern, and everybody hates those things, and move past that, and try to focus on the product, and recognize that the bar is very very low. You don't need to compete with Disney or something of that level. You don't even have to compete with a professional YouTuber. Those people have a team of editors, right? So it doesn't need to be snarky and poppy and crisp at that level. We currently are paying a way too much money for head to toe assessment videos, and they are awful. They look like a 90s sitcom or soap opera. Like it's very dated, and that company charges a lot of money. Like the bar is not very high. If you can make something that is watchable and doesn't like just as long as it doesn't feel dingy or you can't hear it, you're doing okay. And then you just kind of shoot more stuff, and you'd be surprised. One of the things I would also offer you is that you do have to be willing to kind of like fail a few times. And over in the design realm, I'm starting to realize how much I need to take a minute just for the term failure, because in your discipline, failure is a four-letter word, right? Like people die when you guys fail. And in design and in art, we have to learn to fail constantly. Like every single day we fail, because otherwise you can't make art. You can't make art unless you just fail all the time. You just can't make anything good at least. And so we have different, like based on our disciplines, we have different approaches to failure. When you're shooting video, at least in your head, disassociate whatever you've been trained to think of as failure. Failure is okay. You're shooting video, and in fact, it's necessary. So if I'm shooting a 3-minute tutorial video for YouTube, I might, if I'm having a rough day, I might shoot 12 takes or more. They're only 3 minutes. So, at the end of the day, it's not a huge deal, right? Because I can get through a bunch in an hour. I could shoot 12 in an hour. Uh, as long as I've got the studio to myself and my daughter's not making noise or whatever, I can like just keep hitting record. And then I look in the first 8, I usually can just like throw them away because they're awful. And they were not really there to be good videos. What they're there is to help me get over my stumbling. And if I watch some of those early ones, it's mostly just me. I pause. I kind of look at the floor for a second. I can't think what to say, or I'm grumbling because a cable I'm tripping on it or something. And you'll do that stuff. So let yourself do that stuff and use those tests as a way to keep looking at it and going like, could we make it a little brighter? Could we make it look better? Do we need to change the angle? Let yourself get into kind of like a little director kind of mode since you're shooting video, at least for that hour. You have to kind of pretend like you're on a little film set. But if you do those are the basics, right? And those are actually kind of like the easy things to do. It's not technical stuff. It's not math. You don't have to like know how to operate an expensive camera. You have to just kind of use your sensibility and be willing to be honest with yourself about what you're shooting, and your results will get better, like quickly. You'd be surprised.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Oh, no, you're
I'm
good. You're good.
getting a physical. Okay,
Go,
all
go,
right.
go,
Thank
go.
you guys. Okay, thanks.
Bye, Jen.
Bye. Bye-bye.
So I don't know if all that, if that helps kind of situate you or give you some context or kind of.
That does. Yeah, no, that definitely helps. Like
Okay.
figure out some things. Yeah. So I guess we're gonna do the 180. So it's the same camera for the 360, right? Versus 180.
It has like a mode on it from what I remember. It's got again, it's kind of like a 2-button interface. And I think one of them switches it from 180 to 360. There's like a little green light under each lens or something very simple like that.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have
Okay.
trouble, once you get it in hand, you can play with it. And if you have trouble, we could do another Zoom meeting or something. Again, I don't have loads of experience with it, but I was able to get it to work and I shot 2 test videos within like 10 minutes. And I sort of looked at them and went like, cool, neat, it works. And then and then I've kind of lent it out to people as they're interested. Um, so yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess so we'll do that with the 180 and then like putting it on YouTube. So when you do videos, what is the usual way that you distribute them? Is there like when do you put them on YouTube? Like do you what's the way that you use them?
Like, well, I'm operating like depends on what we're talking about here, right? So if I'm making something for on campus, um, like when I was teaching, I would upload it straight to my Carmen course because then the students could just have it. And Carmen was decent at playing those videos. They're not actually, it was not terrific at it, but it would. OneDrive was problematic when I tried to share videos with OneDrive. They were really choppy. It doesn't buffer for some reason. The video player just sucks. I don't know why. Um, SharePoint, I think it's supposed to be better, even though I know it's not OneDrive. I know they're different, but I don't totally understand how. But I think SharePoint maybe their video player might be better. I would test it, upload a video, and then have somebody play it and ask them if it's choppy. Like really just do those tests because I uploaded stuff and then I heard later, like 2 weeks later, students were like it's really choppy, and I was like you could have told me. So do those little
Yeah.
checks. Um, if I'm publishing my own art, then I'm not concerned with OSU's norms at all, and I'm happy not to. So I will publish things to YouTube. I have used Vimeo in the past because it doesn't have like if I'm applying to a show or something, I've used Vimeo for creating playlists. YouTube is my go-to for just kind of connecting with an audience. I've been posting things on Reddit lately because it lets me do that. And then TikTok, which who knows if it'll be here. And then also Instagram. So I post to all those different platforms, and most if I'm posting to Instagram or TikTok, it's for vertical video. So it's mostly just teasers, and if just kind of seeing if something even connects with people. It's not really serious. YouTube, of course, is good for long form stuff. It can do vertical, but it also is a lot of horizontal video, which is the kind of thing you're doing for 180. It's horizontal video. It's proper video.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything with a QR code with a video?
Like putting a QR code in a video or making a QR code go to a video?
Both.
Uh, QR code to a video, yes, I think, but it's really straightforward. You could.
Okay.
That's not a big deal. QR code in a video, I haven't, but it has my first question would be, how is the person supposed to scan the QR code?
Okay,
Yeah. Usually you point your device at a thing. So QR codes are powerful
right.
if they're in a place. They really are good for physical reality, for tying.
Hmm.
Because like I did a thing with some high schoolers the other day, and I just cut out a bunch of little paper squares with QR codes on them, and then just handed them out as a way to create distraction and kind of just keep them busy for a minute, and also make it autonomous because they have phones, so they immediately pulled out their phones and started. And the QR codes were all like different; not all of them were the same. So if they got one and a friend got a different one, then they'd have to like swap cards. It kind of gamified it.
Okay.
QR codes have some use, maybe on posters if they're in a physical location.
Hmm.
But if you can't point your phone at it, then there's not a lot of use to them. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for any kind of video like software editing? Because I think eventually after we actually create the video, we'll probably want to either like put some images in there, maybe like some words on the side or something like that.
Like a
Have you ever,
title, it's nice to put this in. It's just like a title plate.
yeah, something like that, or
Little,
even like
little
more education on the side. Like we'll have to play around with it and what it looks like, but I
And
didn't know
there's
if
some
you had,
trick. There's some like cheap things you can do essentially, right? That punch the video up a little bit. We can talk more about that when you get to that place. But if you're on OSU, then you have access to all the Adobe stuff. So Premiere, and I think there's some kind of lightweight version of Premiere. I think
okay,
I can't remember what it's called right now. It's not Lightroom. That's Photoshop. Anyway, Premiere is the big one that Adobe makes. I don't like Premiere. It's kind of top heavy. Tends to sit on the computer and really like beat the hell out of it. So I just don't, it's not a lightweight enough program for me. It kind of chokes I have a pretty decent gaming computer here because of my job, and it like Premiere really, you can hear the fan kicks on real loud.
oh wow,
I'm like, oh, you sound hot. What's going on, buddy?
oh no,
So there's a lot of video editing programs, and there's a lot of different opinions about this. I use Blender, which is actually an open source 3D modeling tool, but has a decent video editor kind of built into it. Uh,
okay,
and I find it to be very workable. It's not as full featured as Premiere. Premiere has like cool templates and stuff. Like if you want the little name to fly out and go out, Premiere has a lot of that kind of stuff. It's like PowerPoint. Um, iMovie, of course, if you have a Mac, iMovie is a respectable video editor, perfectly
okay,
good. Um, and technically YouTube Studio does have a little video editor built into it. So
okay,
you can do that as well. You just have to upload all the different video clips, and then they have it's a little chunky because you're doing it through the web, but it's workable. It's fine.
okay,
Or anything that you find from chatting with people, simple is good with video. Video is kind of ancient. It's irritating to me that it even is tough to talk about a good video editor. Video is ancient technology at this point, right? As far as
hmm,
digital computers are concerned,
oh
it goes way.
sure,
So the fact that we still like, I understand when 3D modeling gets complicated and becomes a conversation, but video shouldn't be like a conversation because all you got to do is put the little. I'm sure you've uploaded. I don't know if you upload things to social media like Instagram or TikTok, but
hmm,
that little video editor, you just like trim. Like that's what a video editor should be, right? It's like a little strip. Everybody can get it. It's like little kids can do it. It's not. It's
yeah,
not exactly a complicated process, but
right,
the software ends up being overly complicated sometimes. And
okay,
then you sort of go into it going, what am I supposed to do? Where's my little video? And you like, that's like, what makes Premiere difficult is that it's hard to get to the place where you're like, where's my little video so I can just do this? There's like so many tools and templates and things to learn. Right. So
okay. Okay. So I guess like next step, so you're gonna be emailing Stephanie
yeah,
then
I'll have to
about,
email Steph and just ask her where the camera is. I can't remember if she's out of town or not. If she's
okay,
leaving soon, you'll have to wait till after she gets back. Uh,
okay,
so I'll just get back to you with an email to give you a sense of how soon you can get your hands on it.
okay. All right, that sounds good. Well, then I'll start working with one of the other girls in our group. We're gonna be shooting it at her workplace, the ER&I Institute. So
Oh,
I
sure.
guess we'll start figuring out some like dates once we know when we can get the camera, when to match it up. Is there a like time frame when we can have the video? Like
Oh,
for
you
example,
should be able to borrow it for a decent amount of time.
okay,
Certainly weeks. I'll be able to lend it to you for a win because it's only contingent on who needs it next. So
okay,
that's why I can't give it to you. Yeah, because Stephanie's got it. And she's like, yeah, she's going on her trip. Like if she's not going to
sure,
leave for 6 months, I'll get it back from her and give it to you. But like if she's leaving soon, I don't want the complication of back and forth. I want her to just be successful on her trip here.
sure,
But then once I hand it off to you, weeks and weeks, and like if we're getting this close to the end of the semester, my hunch is that you're going to be able to borrow it into the summer, so you should be able to do things at your own pace. But I'll let you know once I hand it off. I'll give you a sense of what what the window's like, and also
Okay.
we can just kind of play it by ear. You can kind of just borrow it and work with it, and then if something comes up, I can notify you, and you could get it back again if you had to. I can work with it so you can make sure you get it enough time to shoot all the stuff you need to shoot.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds great.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I think
yeah,
that was
yeah.
everything. I
Cool.
appreciate you taking the time to meet with
Yeah.
us. You've definitely given us a lot of information and a good direction to go in.
Are you using, so real quickly about Zoom, are you using your personal Zoom? Are you using, like, how are you setting up this meeting?
So I do Carmen Zoom through OSU,
Yeah.
and then I just like log in, and then I just do like host a meeting, and then
If you open
copy
up
the.
Zoom and like do your SSO login, like your organizational login or whatever,
Yeah, I do like my MANE one too. Yeah.
do you have a personal, have you created a like a personal meeting room?
I don't think I've ever done that. No.
We might, let me, here, can I, yes, fine. This meeting is being recorded.